Hello, Ryan here, and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday. This is a weekly show which covers all of the news from the week just past. Be sure to subscribe if you like what you see, and let's get on with it. This week, we hear about the stages to get to fully physicalized inventories. Inside Star Citizen shows off cargo trolleys, mounted guns, homestead progress, and more. Plus, we get to see just what the new Montreal studio has been working on. So this week's Inside Star Citizen kicked off with the actor feature team covering a few features in the works, all of which are actually coming with Alpha 3.13. So the first feature we got to see was mounted guns. Now to begin with the first implementation of this, it'll be with a Galanson Tactical GT210, which is a size 1 ship Gatling gun, and these will be dotted around various planetside locations. Over time, they will allow for other size 1 weapons to be mounted, so that we will have a wide choice of weapons that we want to swap on and off of these mounts. Now it has two modes of use, one being aim down sights, which provides better accuracy and finer control, and the second one is more of a shoulder fire mode style where you can still fire it, but as you move from side to side your character will need to catch up, making it far less accurate. Now the benefit they said of developing this feature for the PU is that it will be shared between the PU, Squadron 42 and Theatres of War, so our testing of it and use of it in the PU will benefit all areas. I hope eventually that we will be able to move these around and set them up in locations that we want. They will be a great addition to base building, having sort of point defense locations in case of attack. The next feature we saw was the new force reactions, which is staggers. Now this will add a new layer to the combat experience. They say it's less destructive than being knocked down, but it is giving more of a visceral experience. So basically, if you are shot from a weapon like a 50 caliber rifle or a shotgun, your character will stagger in the opposite direction to where you were hit. Now the intent for this is to flesh out these force reactions even further, and now they have a good range of reaction severities from being hit from all kinds of weapons. Your character will also stagger while inside of a ship if your pilot rams into something, and personally I think they need a little bit of fine tuning and tweaking to look a bit more natural and smooth, but they are looking pretty decent, and I think they will really hone the experience of FPS to be something a little bit more visceral. Finally, from the actor feature team, they have been working on trolley push and pull, and for 3.13 we are getting a cargo trolley. Now eventually this will allow players to move multiple items at once around the environment, be that cargo for delivery missions or moving items, weapons and components and more, which will be very useful when everything is physicalized. Now he did say that moving forwards, but not for 3.13, we will be able to use them in various delivery missions, but it does look like for 3.13 we will be able to use them for the multi-box delivery missions. I think he was more referring to upcoming missions that we don't have now for cargo delivery missions, but I'm not certain, so I hope we can use them for 3.13, at the very least for these 3-box missions. These trolleys are physically accurate and determined by the character's movements and momentum as we interact with them. This also expands the tool bag for level designers, so being able to use these items that we can push and pull to navigate around an environment or problem solve in various ways. For example, moving something into a location that we can use to jump up on would be very useful. And for the future there will be a wide variety of trolley types for various reasons, like this ladder trolley to be used to access higher parts of a ship, amongst others. Now personally this system is going to create a huge array of options in the future, and this kind of thing will be so useful for cargo, being able to move boxes around your ship, your hangars, landing zones and so on. For engineering, you'll be able to transport new and old components around inside your ship as things need replacing. In salvaging, you could be cutting off components, weapons or bits of scrap metal at a wreck site and then taking them back to your ship, and even useful in base building as well, so moving all of the physical items that you own around your home and displaying them where you want. Now this is a major system which may seem like a bit of a novelty right now or for 3.13, but it will expand and likely be something that we just couldn't imagine living without, so I'm very excited to see this evolve from 3.13 onwards. Anyway, to finish off inside Star Citizen, we had a sprint report. It begins by checking in on the progress with the ship-to-station docking. This is now in final art phase, and the team have been working on things like the finer levels of detail, lighting, signage, the big bulkhead doors, and the overall polish of the collars. They've also been working hard to get the extension and contraction of the arm animating properly, but things, they say, are looking good. The The Planet Content team finished a sprint on a new harvestable plant to be found in Stanton 313. Now these are called Degnus root and is a microalgae first discovered on the Terran coastlines, and although often used in cooking, it is more commonly used in medical products thanks to its nutrients. With the continuation of improving Stanton's planets and moons, the team have gone back to further improve ArcCorp moon Lyria, as they felt it wasn't quite to the quality that they wanted, and so they've been updating the materials and asset packs. The team have also been improving the coral found around the oceans of Hurston, and used scan data to make them look better, plus included a starfish which will actually be sci-fied up in the future. So looking further ahead, the team have been whiteboxing several of the colonialism outpost buildings, which we have been following from the concept phase. These now have the inclusion of standalone battery packs, solar panel arrays and life support units. They've also begun boxing out the small garage units which can comfortably fit an Ursa rover, which also will have roof access to expand on the potential traversal options. They've been testing out the terrain modification tool as well to see how the overall buildings work with the smoothing volumes, and on the inside the team have been blocking out the social spaces, connecting corridors, figuring out how they can hide the viz areas and runtime probes so they don't create visible seams that we can all see. Also, they've been exploring the potential return of the conversation pit, hub units for players to decorate and store items, and bathrooms. Pre-production also begun on the external materials and defining how these structures would have been constructed in the lore of the verse, from foundation stones to various paint layers. They've also been exploring new types of hard surfaces for the interior edgeware effects, which is used to remove hard corners from all surfaces. Teams have also begun whiteboxing 2 new hospital blockouts. The first is to be found under the Aspire Grand Apartment building on New Babbage. It'll have a pharmacy so you can stock up on medipens, and eventually an ambulance drop-off point, which will be so much fun, bringing in the injured. Great for search and rescue missions, amongst other things. The other hospital is to be found at Ryson, coming after the initial release of this new landing zone. And finally, some of you may be aware that CIG and the Turbulent Studios are opening up a new studio in Montreal, which will focus on building all of the persistent universes, planets and moons. Now what we see here is an onboarding testbed to block out the new Javelin rec location. Now this is just a warm-up task to allow artists and designers to learn the various ins and outs of the game engine, CIG's workflows and overall development process, and although this was originally just a test, it has inspired everyone to explore this idea further, which will happen later this year. Now this is incredible to see, and it is great to finally get some official word of what the Montreal studio are up to. I was originally under the impression that this team was only going to build out the planets and the moons, not points of interest, but after seeing this, I cannot wait to see what more they can create. I do hope that we're not waiting too long to get these kinds of environments in-game. Anyway, that was Inside Star Citizen. Let's move on. So this week's Calling All Devs was with Richard Tyra, who is the core gameplay director, and today he was specifically talking about player inventories and how they will evolve from what they are now to fully physicalized and persistent. As Star Citizen is a big game and has ships, characters, landing zones, hubs, hangars and other locations, they need to make sure that all of these areas can talk to each other and share things between them. Right now in the PU, we have personal inventories, which means that we can press I and open up the inventory to show us space in the backpack or on your leg or chest armor. And currently it's only going to show items like food, drink, med pens and commodities like harvestables and minables. So this doesn't include weapons, ammo, grenades and so on, due to the limitations of the current backend infrastructure, which covers the saving of the persistent items to the backend. What they want to bring next is to upgrade the system and make it more flexible so you can store weapons and items that you find, or remove your helmet and store it in your backpack. Now this is what's called the personal inventory and is what is going to be coming with Alpha 3.14. They also want to expand on the external inventory, which is what we currently have with the Greycat ROC. This has a physical location in the world in which players can physically interact with, and it triggers an interface just like what we have for our personal inventory. And these external inventories could be anything like a crate on the floor, an enemy inventory like if you've managed to kill someone, and so on and so forth. Now these types of inventories with this interface means you're not dealing with the individual item on a physical level, you're dealing with a storage container that has these items on the inside, and using this interface you can then drag and drop these items from one to the other. So from there, they want to get to the true physical inventory in which you would see the actual item physically stored on a weapon rack or in a locker, and then you can reach out and grab them. This full physicalized inventory is where they want to get to, but before that, they want to get to the next step, which is the local inventory. So the local inventory is an area that you are in, but is not physically represented, which could be your hangar at a landing zone or your ship, and it is a temporary solution on the personal level that allows players to access and store personal items like weapons, armor, and food and drink within the physical area, like your hab, hangar, or ship. So the next step would be to have a personal inventory and a local inventory, which will allow you to swap and move items that you need from your person to the ship's inventory or the hangar's inventory, which then creates this gameplay loop of physical inventory without truly implementing the physical requirements of it while they work towards that. So when this comes in, an example could be that you are planetside and you've managed to kill a pirate in FPS. You could then drag that pirate body back to your ship, open up your personal inventory, access the pirate's backpack by use of the external inventory interface, and then also open up the local inventory of your ship. And then using these three interfaces, swap things from one to the other, and then you could fly to a landing zone and land inside a hangar, and now you have your personal inventory, your ship's inventory, and the hangar's inventory, allowing you to then transfer those items between those three interfaces. Now, a long-term goal is they would like to offer both options of either physically grabbing and interacting with your items from the lockers and so on, but also offer the option of just to open up the inventory interface if you would prefer to use that instead. So we would have both options. Also, when you open the personal inventory, they would want your character to be displayed in 3D so that you can see everything that is on your character and manage your loadout that way. Kind of similar to what we have now in the Personal Manager app, but much better quality. They are also working on an Asset Manager app. They will eventually remove the Personal Manager app, as it doesn't really make sense to use this app to change your weapons or clothing, as that would be more considered an inner thought method. But this Asset Manager app will display every item that you own and its status and location. Now, this won't allow you to physically interact with it, but you can see where it is, what it is, and then from there you can request to get it moved from one location to another, which will likely have a time and cost associated with it, and it would require you to employ people to move these for you. Now, this system is eventually going to require physical locations like physical hubs and hangars to allow us to safely store all of our items. So the end goal is you will be at a landing zone in your hub where you can physically store your stuff, or in a hangar in which you can store your items alongside your ship, or you could just put your stuff inside your ship. But in the future, this will also include things like homesteads that you've built, allowing you to keep your items where you want them. Now, when talking about space and limitations, this will include the limitation of the weight you can carry, which is something that they are pushing towards now, the tractor beam being the first use case of this, the items dimensions, and the volume capacity. So as an example that they used, you can't place a snooker cue inside of a backpack as it wouldn't fit, but you could break that snooker cue into multiple pieces and then it would fit inside the bag. So the items dimension will make sense to where you can fit it inside each storage option. So to recap, the next steps go as followed. Personal, external, and local inventories, item-based for the character so that if you die in a cave, you can go back and retrieve your items. And at that point, that will be the core inventory gameplay loop. And then long-term is to physicalize everything, and going forwards, all ships will have some form of external and physical storage. So as you can see, there is a lot of work to get through, and they are doing it in steps, so getting the inventory interfacing between players, storage, ships, and homes, and then the true physicalization of everything. So quite a big amount of information from Richard Tyra there. It's pretty much what we kind of knew in terms of direction, but it was great to get a thorough insight into the stages to get to that end goal. Now for 3.14, we don't know exactly what we will be getting in terms of all of these features, but I expect inventory will be limited to what you can realistically carry, and it will be using the personal, external, and local inventories and the ability to move items from one place to the next. I do expect it will include the items persisting inside these inventories, but we will have to see. Thank you to Richard Tyra for the highly detailed and clear explanation. You can really see just how excited he is for these systems, which is great to see, especially from a developer. And this new inventory system and everything to follow on is super important to Star Citizen as a whole, and once they get to that fully physicalized inventory, it'll be quite a special moment in Star Citizen's development. But that was calling all devs. So also this week, we had a new Galactopedia update. The latest jump point is available to all subscribers, plus the roadmap received its latest update, which I have covered in a dedicated video linked below. So that brings us to the end of the show. If you do enjoy my content, please consider subscribing and hitting that like button. Also, I am able to do this thanks to my very generous patrons and channel members. If you appreciate what I do and would like to help make it even better from as little as $1 a month, all of the links are provided below.